Hi, welcome to the Breaking into Hollywood through Web Series panel here at the AfroComicCon Virtual 2020 event. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to take a second to ask you to please consider donating to the AfroComicCon slash Moonshot Junior program that funds young girls of color to go through a 12-month program where they learn tech skills, innovation, product development, and entrepreneurship. Please click the donation link. Any amount will help. I want to introduce myself. My name is Theo Hollingsworth. I'm a filmmaker and producer based in Oakland, California. I currently work full-time for a nonprofit video production company in San Francisco called Baycat, where we train young women and people of color in filmmaking. And most recently, I produced a web series. It's a science fiction comedy called Sirius Lee, the Problematic Time Transplant. And it is being featured in this season's AfroComicCon International Film Festival. So hopefully you'll get an opportunity to check that out. So I had an opportunity over the past couple of days to speak with two really awesome creators in the web series world. First, we have Nova Sparks. Nova is actually a screenwriter and an author. She authored a trilogy series called The Dome. It's a 3-part science fiction series that you can purchase on Amazon. And she's also currently in development writing a web series called Widow's Peak. I also had the opportunity to speak with Moon Ferguson. Moon is an amazing filmmaker, and she last year came out with a dope fantasy web series called JuJu Web Series. You can catch that on Amazon. You can catch it on a lot of different places. So definitely Google search that, and Moon will tell you more about this web series and getting into that. So thank you all for joining us today. Again, this is the Breaking into Hollywood through Web Series panel, and I hope you enjoy my conversations. I know you're more of a writer than like productions end of things, but I also have experience with working on as a PA on JuJu.
Which was like my first time, and the crazy part is I actually put something out there. So let me say how that happened.
Yeah.
So I posted something about that show, that Netflix show that came out. What is it called? It was a show that I feel like Netflix kind of like catfished everybody about, where it was I think it was called Always a Witch or something like that.
Okay.
Where it was following a witch who was Black, and all the trailers about it was like, we were going to get this TV show on Netflix about this Black witch, and she was trying to get back to her roots, and she was like out of time, like she was from like way back in the day during slavery times, and she was like thrusted into like modern day. I'm not sure if she was in Brazil or if it was a Spanish speaking country. I'm not sure, because I saw like one episode and I could not like stomach the rest of it. But I was so hype about it. I was posting about it. I was like, I was excited. And then when we all, as Black people do, we do like the Black Twitter thing, and we all like collectively watch a show. And then we kind of knew real quick that it wasn't what they promoted. It was like, she was this witch from slavery times who fell in love with her slave master. And they were like in a whole relationship, and she was thrusted into the future, and her whole goal was like to get back to him. And I was like, that's not the message you really want to be sending. But none of the trailers had any of that in it. And that's why I like publicly said on Twitter, like, this seemed like a little catfishy. And you kind of got all of us excited to see like this Black witch show, only to give us like a slave and slave master relationship, like you're romanticizing slavery. So that's when Moon jumped on my comment, and she was like, you want to see a real show about real Black witches? You got to get into JuJu Web Series. And I think this was like during production, like she was like filming it at the time. So she gave me the link to her website. I looked at the website, and she and I were like talking back and forth. And I kept her like as a contact. I always like the things that she posted on Twitter, and it was like vice versa. And then I was saying to myself, listen, I write like these web series or like web shows, and but I have no experience with being on a set at all. And I just posted like, I want to see what's gonna happen one day. So I posted, hey, like if anybody's filming anything in the city, I would love to come on set. And she was like the first person who responded, was like, let me know if you're available this day. And it was like deep in like the West Bubblefuck Brooklyn, was like super far away. I live in the Bronx, so Brooklyn is like literally like South Carolina to me. So it's like you got to travel, you got to take a couple of trains and walk like a great distance to get to, no matter where you're going in Brooklyn, you got to walk a long time. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to Brooklyn. I'm going to like cut out my entire day to go to Brooklyn and this to go on the set. So I went in there and they had this like super duper like guerrilla thing going on. Like everybody had several jobs. Like they was going to make it happen. And just to watch like how she made this happen, like she created her own lighting. She just met me, tossed me a camera, and I was shooting like behind the scenes stuff. Never, ever, ever like filmed like anything like that. I was doing set design. Like it was crazy. I got so much experience off that one day, like on her set. And she was just like really trusting. Like she just like, you know, talked to you and like got you really involved with what she was doing. Didn't even care if you didn't have any experience. She didn't care if you wasn't like interning at a film school, which a lot of people do. Like they want you to work for them. Like if you're like in a film school and you're an intern, which I'm obviously not. But she was just like, it was so many people on set just like helping. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, now I know like she's the real deal, because she has so many people just willing to like work with her on something that was like her passion and her dream. And they weren't really getting anything out of it, just like helping her do something. And it was like, I said, okay, I gotta like stay in contact with her. And she's really dope. And she actually credited me on it. I did not think I was gonna get credit on it. So when I went to her premiere, she did a premiere for the first episode in Brooklyn again. I didn't take the train this time. I learned my lesson. I took an Uber all the way there, spent all that money. So I went there and I went to watch the premiere and I watched the whole thing. It was a super dope episode. And then at the end, the credits came up and here I saw my name. I was like, girl, you're a real one for that one. Like I was hyped. You couldn't have convinced me that I didn't want an Oscar that day. Like I was like, I am like credited. You can't tell me nothing. I'm putting this on my resume. I was hyped, but yeah. Anyway, I know that was a lot, but go ahead.
No. That's gonna go into that's about to go into it. I'm gonna have to. No, that's great because I mean I wanna. Yeah, I think that's important as we talk about like web series, to understand like outside of just like, oh, this is like a portfolio piece to get me to Hollywood. It's like a community build,
it really is
kind of activity as well. So thank you. That was clean. One weird part about this is I got a intro AfroComicCon. Actually, you know what? Forget that. I'm gonna edit this together, so I'll just
right. See,
I was gonna
like you got the chops. You got this.
I was gonna like have to read the script, or whatever, but I'll record that separate. This is just a conversation at this point. So I want to double back also and like, first, like, can you tell me a little bit about your works, all of your works? It doesn't have to be web series, just like your experience writing and a little bit about like your background, maybe what got you into this.
So, what got me into this? So I consider myself like I was always a writer. Even when I was younger, before I even knew what I was doing, like I had this diary. I think I tweeted about this the other day. Like I had a diary and I didn't know how to use it. And I just thought it was just a book that you put stuff in. So I was like making stuff up, which I'm pretty sure if anybody found it at the time, like they would have took me away from my parents. It was like, okay, you like some crazy stuff is happening. And my mom told me, she's like, I found it. And I opened up your diary, which we'll talk about that later. But she opened up the diary and read it. And she was like, yo, like you were making everything up. But I realized like then that you just wanted to write and create stories. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that that's what I was doing like my whole life. And like when I was younger, I wasn't like allowed to watch television or like movies and stuff like that until like way later. So I was like behind on like all the stuff that kids my age were watching, all the stuff that they were reading. Like I wasn't like one of those kids who can say that they were like 5 years old and watched this show that everybody knows about. Like I was introduced to that stuff like way later, but I always heard about the stuff that everybody else was watching and like created my own versions of it and like wrote stuff down and made up my own. Like I've heard about Smallville and I just wrote my own episodes of it. Didn't know what the heck didn't even know what the show was like. I knew what it was about because obviously Superman, but I didn't know like what was happening in the show. I just wrote my own episodes. So I didn't know like that was like an actual career. I just thought that you were acting. Didn't really put two and two together that somebody wrote those shows. And I was like, oh, that's what I was doing my whole life. So I really knew that, you know, you always know that what you should do with your life is something that you do for free. Like if no one's paying you to do it, it's something that you spend all your time doing it. Like that's your calling. So I just knew like that was just something that I really, really wanted to do. And when I my book series, The Dome, that I have out now, which the first book is out now on Amazon, it actually started as a treatment for a television show. It wasn't supposed to be a book at all. And I wrote it, I always had it, and I just kept adding on to it as the years went by, like never once thinking that at some point I would actually try to put this out. And then when I did try, I didn't do like the, let me try to make it myself route. I thought I was just so naive and thought that I can write a show and just walk into HBO and get it on HBO. That is not how this works at all. So it just didn't happen. But I knew that I wasn't the person who was interested in actually filming it or interested in actually doing all the actual technical stuff that's involved with making a web series. I just knew that I was really good at creating stories. So didn't have any money at the time. I was completely jobless, like I was unemployed. So I thought of like, how can I get this story out there in a way that people can access it, but it's cheaper. The cheaper part didn't never happen because it costs a lot of money to make a book. But I decided to make it into a book, and that took a lot of research to learn how to like actually write a book, because writing a book and writing a script or a screenplay is two completely different things. It's like learning how to write in a way where people see something that they're never actually going to see. Like they're visualizing something that's not in front of them, but it's completely different. So I did that. I love it. I'm never going to stop writing books. I realize that now, but I always know like my passion is like to create actual shows that people can see. And I kept going with the screenwriting. I did create a web series that's not out at all yet, but I've written it. It's called Widow's Peak, as Peek. And I haven't decided if I'm going to do Peek or Peak, because it goes well for where the story's going. Because there is a peak and there's a peak, so there's a lot going on in the story. But it follows this Black girl who doesn't have a soul. She doesn't know she doesn't have a soul, and because she doesn't have a soul, she's like the perfect vessel to hold a ancient entity that is it doesn't have like, it's not an evil entity or a good entity. It's just an entity of power. And there's a whole collective of people out there who wants to sway this power to either good or evil. But there's another collective, like a council, whose whole purpose in life is to make sure that it maintains some type of balance. So once this entity goes inside of her, she now has this person who's a member of this council of people who want to maintain the balance, is there to kind of like protect her while she is like the person who's like have this entity in her. And then of course once it's in her, she becomes like a beacon, and all the bad things in the world like kind of like attracts to her. So like it gravitates towards her. But so that's just one part of it. But what I never told anybody, I'm going to say it now, that's actually like one small part of a larger story. So I created a universe where it's called The Grove, which is like a fictional 6th borough in the city. So it's of course, if I ever film it, you're going to see like the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens and different stuff like that. But in this show, it will just be like a fictional 6th borough. And this borough is where all the supernatural like kind of gravitates towards. So the supernatural spirits live there, all pretending to be human, but not realizing that the next door neighbor is also a supernatural being, that they're all hiding, but there's no real reason to, because everybody there is basically something. And of course, there are humans that live there as well, because, housing prices are cheaper. So, and it's like, there's like all these different characters that are in the Grove. And what I wanted to do, which I haven't seen this done, I'm pretty sure it exists, but I really wanted to create a show or a series, a web series that's more so, instead of there being episodes, like actual episodes, I wanted it to be like short films in place of episodes. And each film or episode, so to say, will follow a different character that lives in the Grove. So there'll be like 5 episodes in this season, and one of the characters will be Widow. Another character will be someone else, and their lives kind of like connect in some way, but they're all like fighting a separate battle that goes together at some point. And yeah, so I kind of wanted to make like a web series of like short films in a way, but so it's like 40 minutes or less, but it's just like 5, and that would be like season 1, and then the next 5 episodes, so you'll get like the second half of everyone's story the next season. So I'm trying to find a way to do that because, again, like I don't know how to work a camera. I have one. I bought one. It's very pretty. It's been sitting there collecting dust, but I'm trying to figure out how to use it because what I do know is that if you want to make things happen, you really gotta do it yourself. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to get to that point where I know or learn how to use an actual camera and do this myself.
Okay.
That's a lot, but
No. That gives you that's so insightful. That I'm like I'm curious. I have so many questions. First off, why not call it the Grove as opposed to Widow's Peak? If you're gonna
okay, so the big series is called The Grove. Widow's Peak is a separate story that's in The Grove. And there's there's 4 other characters. They're going to be called something else, but it's underneath the web series of The Grove. So it's almost like it's a show within a show.
Right. Okay. Got you. There's this show on HBO now. It actually started out as a web series called High Maintenance. Are you familiar with it?
I've heard of it. Have no idea what it's about.
It's actually just about this guy. He's a weed dealer. Then he bikes around to different apartments throughout New York City.
Mm-hmm.
He delivers weed. But like similar to your show, it's the idea of like every episode is its like own little short film. And,
really?
And they're like, yeah, I mean, and like their stories kind of like intertwine, like the lifestyles, you know, because it's really just like a look inside of just like New York folks' apartments, because this guy's a weed dealer, so he just gets to come in and like learn about them and be a part of their life for a little bit. So it's interesting. I mean, yes, I guess they started out as a web series that did something different rather than just more episodic content.
Yeah.
So
I'm loving how, like, people are getting attention from like web series now, and it's like they're getting picked up.
Yeah, and so I'm curious why are you envisioning? I want to go back because you did mention that you learned that you went to whatever, you were like, I'm just gonna sell the show to HBO, and it like didn't happen that way. Like, what have you like learned, and what is like, I guess, is it still like an ideal goal to get something sold to HBO or major network? And if so, like, what does that pathway look like now?
Okay, so when that didn't happen, I was like on a FHBO type thing. I was like, what? Because I was just, I was ignorant. I didn't really know how the process went. I didn't really know that, especially at the time, which it was not that long ago, even though it was technically like 10 years. 10 years isn't really a long time in like entertainment world. I realized that you really have to show people that it's worth investing in. It's very rare that you're going to get, especially for us, it's very rare that you're going to just walk into a place and say, this is what I want to do. It sounds hot, right? Give me the money and we're going to make it happen. What they do now is they want to see you do it yourself. Are people actually watching it? Is this something that if we invest money in and put it on our channel, will people actually watch this because, it's that good? And I realized that, and I'm seeing now why we're getting a lot more people, because this has always been going on, but a lot more people producing their own stuff, because that really is how it goes right now. Unless you know somebody like that you can like walk in front of and like sell this to, and you know that they're gonna like pick it up, this is the way to do it. You got to kind of do it yourself. And I used to get pissed off at people for saying that, like, just make it yourself. Like, that's just such a flippant thing to say to somebody, especially in this industry, because it costs money. Not everybody has money. A lot of creators are either jobless or underemployed, meaning they have a job, but all their money is going to them paying their bills and eating. Some people are choosing, their passion over eating. Like, this is the reality of like the creators in the world. And just being on social media, I see that everyone who is a creator has their own personal life that they have to deal with as well. So when you tell them, just create it, just do it yourself, it's like, stuff costs money. But at the end of the day, they are also right. If you want people to invest in you, you kind of got to invest in yourself first. So that's something that I definitely learned right away. Like, no one's going to hand you anything. And even, when they tell you, you got to get an agent, even getting an agent isn't that easy. Like, that's not even easy at all. That's a whole nother battle. Like, you got to also invest in yourself too before you get an agent to give a damn about you. Like, why would I work with you and try to get someone else to, invest in you if I can't see if it's worth investing in? So it's a constant like proving yourself over and over and over again. And the first person you got to prove yourself to is yourself. So if you're not willing to like put some money down or take some time out or talk to other people and get them, you know, invested in what you want to do so that they can work with you because you can't do it on your own, then what's the point? Yeah.
I feel you. I feel you. I like I mean I don't know if you got a chance to take a look at the link I sent you to my web series. But yeah.
Yes, I actually I did.
Yeah. That's very much like that. You know, I think similar to yourself. Like I was maybe naive starting out and being like, yeah, like I'm gonna get discovered. You know what I mean? Like, and then it didn't happen, and then it was like, oh, okay, like the people I see around it happening with are the ones that are like just they're making it themselves, you know. So and I'm very much in that pathway now, you know, just like I'm just gonna put it, and it's like by the time I get on, you know what I mean? It's like you gotta do so much proving of its worth to a major network that it's like by the time I prove it to you, it's like, do I need you?
Exactly. That's exactly where I am right now. Like, it's true because like it's like you want somebody to invest in your show, but then you have to like invest in yourself first. So then what you wind up doing is learning everything you need to learn, you know, spending all the money you need to spend, getting the team together, you know, learning how to market it to the point where I found my audience. Do I really need you at this point? I mean, it just really is what it is.
Right. So yeah, it's that's real. So I'm curious now though. So you decided to do. It sounds like you kind of have two methods. One is like you wrote. Maybe you found that like script, getting your script actualized, and like you know the story told at mass. Maybe it was too expensive to do immediately, so you like flipped it into a book, and you're like, okay, cool, like. That way you can get the story out there. And then simultaneously now you're like, nah, but I still want to make this video or this story actualize in the mass. So now you're going to try to like go the web series route.
Yeah. Because I'm a very visual person. Like I do enjoy books. I love reading. I read all the time. But even when people read the dome, the first thing they say is, I can see this, like being and it's like to hear people say that is like, but that's what I wanted. Like that's what I wanted this whole time. So it's like I'm still like, even though I wrote it in a way where it's, you know, it's a book, people read the book and they want it to be something that they can actually visualize. Like they're visualizing it already just because like the descriptive language and things like that, they can see it as they're reading, but they would like to see something like that on the TV or even as like a movie, you know, maybe one day. But so then why? I don't see the point of not like continuing or trying to create this web series and see it. I mean, even if it's not exactly the way I want it to be, like, because I don't have the money to like make people fly. Like if I do that, it's going to be one episode, 10 minutes long, because that's all my money. But, you know, I'm going to do what I can to get like at least the story out there, spend a little bit of money I can as far as, you know, FX is concerned, so people can see like what it is that I'm trying to go for. But I'm not even concerned about that because like I've seen, you know, web series where the special effects were terrible, but at the end of the day, the story is really good. And if that's the only thing that's the issue, and that's really not even an issue because who got the money? Like that, let's just be honest. If that was in like the hands of like a major studio, the same story with the money to cover the special effects, like I don't see like where there's an issue, like why that would prevent someone from watching it. You know, we really are watching something for the story. And yeah.
So you know, you bring up a couple of interesting points there. I mean, like obviously producing a web series is like it's not necessarily a cheap endeavor. But like I feel like in the genres that we seem to focus on, which are sci-fi and fantasy, it's almost like you're making like a hard task even harder, because it's like, oh yeah, like just getting characters in place and getting props and stuff, that's expensive, but now you need to add in this special effects element for all these like, you know, these you know, these sci-fi and fantasy stories. So do you ever consider like when you write, are you just not factoring in like the financial cost at all? Like, or like, or have you considered like, you know what, maybe I should write like just a simple romance story for the web?
So, so when I originally wrote The Dome, I wrote it to be cheap. And that's why, like, if so people who've read the book, if you pay attention to the story, and if I didn't tell you that it was on another planet, or if I didn't tell you that there were aliens there, this could have been shot in like Colorado somewhere. Like, it's just, on the new planet, they're living in a dome, and the dome simulates life on Earth. And it simulates life on Earth for a reason, because at the time I figured if I was going to film this, I needed to look like that town over there, because it's cheap. I can go film in this, suburban community, as opposed to making it look like some fantastical place from some faraway region that's going to require money for me to build this. So I made it look like that for a reason. I made the aliens look like humans in a way for a reason, because the only thing that makes them different is like, the skin being a little paler than usual. Doesn't mean that they're white, but if they're black, they have like a little gray tint on them. That's cheap to do. I can rub them with some SPF screen lotion, sunscreen. So, and their eyes are black. That's some context right there. So I wrote it that way because that stuff wasn't really as important as the actual story. So the story could be the same. The aliens can look different, like a little more, weird, but it doesn't change the fact that this chick, falls in love with one, and they still, the family still wants to know if the aliens are hostile or not. It doesn't matter what they look like for that story to go on. And it doesn't matter what it looks like where they live for the story to go on the way that it did. So there was a lot of things that I put in there where if I was to film it myself, or if a studio wanted to film it for me and the budget came through, I wanted it to be like, this is not that expensive. We could do this. We can order more episodes of this. Like, that was the way I was thinking, even down to like, the pills that they give them. I had it looking like NyQuil for a reason, like, because I wanted to be able to just go to a store and get a bunch of them. So I did factor it in. Now, the stories that I wrote after that, I wanted to be able to write that passion, story where I didn't have to think about the budget, and I think every writer has something like that, in the chamber. Like, if money wasn't an object, what would be the script that you'll pull out? What would be the web series that you'll, pull out the drawer right now? And we all have one. And that's definitely one of them. I want people to be able to disappear, to fly, the Grove is a place where everybody, for the most part, has some type of, supernatural ability. So that will be pretty expensive to create. So that's my thing.
Yeah, I'm, and now I'm curious to understand, like, once you get, because I'm going to see The Grove, I'm going to see that it's going to get actualized, and you're going to have a whole series of books now out that are like #1 best-selling sci-fi books.
Let's hope.
So what, I mean, at that point, like, what's the move? You talked about like how it's so hard to get an agent, or it's so hard to get in front of HBO. Like, what do you think that you'll then be able to accomplish once you have like these 3 books out in this bomb-ass web series?
I honestly, I want to get to a place where I don't have to ask. That's honestly where I am. And it's like what you said earlier, like when you do so much investing in yourself, it's to the point where it's like, I'm loving where this is going. Like, I'm learning so much that I want to see how far I can go on my own. I really do. Cause I didn't think that I would be able to publish all of these books. I mean, I'm republishing them now, but like to have 3 books written, getting, the book covers, I'm doing original music to go with it. Like, it's all of this stuff that's like, involved in this. And it's like, I didn't have a literary agent for that. I didn't have a publishing house, for that. I can, and then not to be, weird, but like I can go online and like talk to somebody about the Dome and they've heard of it. And no one was like working with me to get my name out there at all. And don't get me wrong, like not a lot of people know me at all, but it's like a small handful of people. And I love those 5 folks. I do. Like, all 5 of them, they're my friends. So, but if I can do that with that, I don't see how I can't like create my web series, even if it isn't as expensive as I want it to be, putting it out there, getting people, involved in it, getting people invested in it, getting people to watch it, and continuing to do that to the point where people who I want to see it not only see it, but they notice it and they want to work with me. That's kind of like where I am right now, because I have to think of it in a way that I have something that you want, you just don't know it yet. And I see these web series where I'm like, yo, I would love to turn on the TV and see that. Not to say that it's a shame that I have to go on like YouTube to watch it. Like, that's fine with me. I can watch that whenever I want. I don't have to wait for a specific time. It's on. I can watch it. But it's a little sad that I feel like, network television is a little slow on the uptick. Like, why are you just now getting like the Euphorias or stuff like that on TV, where people have been making this stuff for so long, banging on the door to get in? And now these people have like 5 or 6 seasons online with like thousands of views on YouTube. And now that all the stuff is going on in the world, you want to like, hey, why don't you come into my office for a meeting? It doesn't, the stuff was great always. It's not great now that they're, paying attention to it. So I want to get to the point where I can create stuff for the people I want to create it for. I have control of what I'm actually making. I have control of how I market it, have a control of who I'm putting in it and who I'm involving in the projects, and control of when I say, yes, I will work with you, and let's see. And I feel like the project will be closer to what I want it to be if I did it that way, as opposed to walking in with just a story. And by the time it's on like the pilot episode, it looks nothing like what the heck I wrote.
Right.
Yeah.
That's real. That's real. I mean, I think that we have a pretty solid understanding of like breaking into the web series from a predominantly novel writer, but with a film background and interest in that field. So I appreciate the time that you took with me today. I'm curious if you could uh like call out all your social media handles or all the plugs or all the things that we should know about.
Okay, so Noah Sparks. I am on Twitter at _ in the Nova. That's INTHENOVA. I am on Instagram at in the Nova, no underscore. And you can find my book, my debut novel, The Dome. It is on Amazon. It is only on Amazon. It is available for ebook on Kindle, and it is available for print. Go get your copy. People love it. I hope you love it too.
So JuJu is a fantasy web series. I always tell people it's a once upon a time story. Because I love fairy tales, like old fashioned. I had this big old thick book of fairy tales that my mom had bought me, like I'm the Disney kid through and through. Like when I say fantasy, it's not sci-fi, because I know people like to call JuJu sci-fi, and JuJu is not sci-fi. Sci-fi is science fiction. There's nothing science about witches, werewolves, and vampires. That is all fantasy, like
Right.
totally make believe, a whole different world that doesn't exist or cannot exist. Sci-fi can exist. Aliens, they're probably out there. Time travel, it probably can happen. Space, it's there. So like that's a different differentiation. I can't speak, of like sci-fi and fantasy genre. And I don't get too annoyed. It's just like, just kind of,
Right.
I'm not a sci-fi. I love sci-fi, but I'm not a sci-fi writer.
Right.
I always say I'm a fantasy filmmaker, fantasy only, like fairy pixie dust and vampires and worlds that just probably have pink skies and bluegrass. So JuJu is a once upon a time story. Basically, once upon a time in this land, there were 3 best friends who broke a curse unbeknownst to them and discovered they are witches. So JuJu's 3 best friends, millennial girls, on top of all the millennial bullshit that me and you got to deal with, situationships, trying to figure out what the fuck I want to do with my life before 30. love triangles, generational curses, unlearning shit, and just all that identity, like being first gen and all that other stuff, women problems, career woes, and microaggression in corporate America. They deal with all those on top of dealing with these new powers that they have. So they're basically trying to balance, like, okay, I have all these magic and these emotions, and now you're telling me I have to fulfill a prophecy, but bitch, I can barely pay rent. Like I'm in a situationship with this toxic dude that I need to leave. My freaking white boss is super racist, like, so their millennium problems trump their witch problems, um which backfires, but that's what JuJu is. I always feel like, I don't know, I always feel like it's so hard for me to not what am I trying to say? I always feel like I'm being a bully or a too bossy, like Angelica Pickles.
Really?
I guess only because I'm the oldest of a lot of fucking kids.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So it's like ever since I was 3 years old, like I was put in a leadership position, because my brother was born. But at 3, I was helping my mom out with my brother, whether it was like watching him real quick or entertaining him for, just like those natural older sibling instincts, and then it was kid after kid after kid. And then, you just, I'm the girl, oldest girl, big sister. You just become that like second mom to them. Even my youngest brothers will say that, like, yeah, she was like my second mom. But I always tell my mom, I'll be like, I'm always like, thank you so much for having all these children, because my leadership skills, I feel like they're on point. Because I was so responsible for them, like probably more responsible for them more than an older sister should have been.
Mm.
In a sense that I took them to doctor's visits, like on days where I had early release from when I was in high school, had early release. Like my youngest sibling is 12 years younger than me. So I'm 31, the youngest is 19. So like it was a lot of us, but we were so close in age. It was like 3 years, 4, like every 3 or 4 years it was another kid. So by the time I was started driving, my mom was like, okay, girl, can you help me out? So I was either like taking them to doctor's visits, but not so much like where my mom had me like, completely like disregard what I had going on, but it was like she'll group our shit together. So like, okay, everyone going to the doctor on the same day, you drive, I was a junior cheer coach for volunteer hours in high school. My siblings played football for the city league that I coach. My sister cheered for the city league that I coach. So she's like, okay, girl, you guys, you take them to practice. It was like, I just naturally became so responsible for them. And I really think because they're all different personalities, we all have, we all come from like a crazy, dysfunctional, violent home. So we all have anger, but we all kind of like exert it differently. But I've always been the only one who know how to wrangle up, these feisty pit bull Rottweiler kids that my mom had. And because I've learned like growing up how to deal with different personalities and how to deal with different emotions, like the same emotions, the different ways exerted, I feel like that really helped me run a set, because it's different people, it's different ways that people receive communication. It's different ways that you need to explain shit to people. Like for me, you need to tell me every single detail, because I feel like I can't move if I don't know every single detail. And I don't want to like do something and fuck it up because you didn't give me that detail. So that's how I am. So I know, some people receive things differently. So I always say that me being the oldest of so many different type of children, different personalities, because me and my siblings, oh my God, like, I don't know, like our whole is just so many different personalities that my mom had to deal with. So yeah, so sometimes I feel like, I'm kind of like, and I'm very direct, I'm very assertive, of course, just because just who I am. if I have an emotion or someone, you know, makes me feel a way, I tackle it head on, like, hey, I don't like that, or like, hey, you know, I always tell my crew, like, sometimes it can come off a little snappy, but I get frustrated, I get annoyed, but I always let them know that it's not them that I'm annoyed at. And if I feel myself projecting it onto them, I always say, I'm so sorry. It's not you. It's just the situation. It's just, you know, me trying to figure out what's what. So sometimes I'm always in my head like, oh shit, like, am I being like people's mamas?
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
Stuff like that.
Well, she has nothing negative to say. She mentioned no, like, oh, Moon is, you know, like, but I mean, I think it's good that you talk about that. I'm curious, like, on set, do you consider yourself, or what position do you like to be in more? Do you like to be more of a uh, director? Do you like to be more of the producer? Or do you like to be like like, I don't know, like, because there's like kind of a fine line where it's like, if you're for me, if I'm like in director mode, I don't necessarily have time to be like in the weeds of, like, you know, what the, like, explaining what the production duties are to a PA. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if I'm in the producer role, I'm trying to do everything I can and be as explicit as possible whenever, so I can have my director just be focusing on working with the actors and stuff. So where do you see yourself fit in more?
Well, for me, it's hard for me to not produce. That's the control freak in me. But for my last few projects, even for JuJu, the thing is having support. So for pre-production, I'm all on board. You know, I'm in heavy producer mode only because, you know, for I'm just such a planner. And my thing is like, okay, if I can just plan this out as best as we possibly can, because, you know, Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will. But if I could have organized chaos, I'm okay. I can't have unorganized chaos, you know, and organized chaos is like, okay, maybe we forgot a boom pole. I have no luck with boom poles. I have no luck with boom poles. All my productions have been like me taping my mic on like a broomstick, or like even in Florida, I had lost my boom pole, or like it broke. And like I literally climbed a tree, took off a long thick branch, and like wrapped my mic around it and was like, fuck it, this is our boom pole. But like little things like little shit like that I expect, but it's like or like locations fall through, like things that's out of my control. But like if it's unorganized chaos where like no one read the script, there's no shot list, there's no like nothing is prepared, I can't do it. I cannot do it. So I need everything like set in stone, and so I can have the best. It's like me doing myself a favor. That's how I see it. Organizing, being super organized during prep is doing yourself a favor when it comes to production.
So do you find yourself, like, have you ever actually been hired to just come on as solely the director for somebody else's project?
I have for one project, but as soon as we started production, COVID happened. And then yeah, there's a lot of other projects like web series and stuff that people have asked me. It's just time, you know, and I'm so focused on my own projects as a producer, because I do have a production company. Because essentially I want to develop stories. I don't necessarily have to direct those stories. But for me, I will always direct what I write, and I have no problem directing someone else's things, but I will always direct what I write. Um, but yeah, my goal is to have a development deal. And my goal is to have stories based in Florida, black, whether it's like Black history, Caribbean history, Afro-Latina history, Florida Black history. I call Florida the Forgotten South a lot because we have so much Black history here that no one talks about. And like that's really my goal. So if someone else wants me to direct, it will have to align with who I am.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be sci-fi fantasy, but it just has to touch me. You know, it has to have intention. It can't just be any old thing and you just want Moon to direct it, you know.
Right.
It really has. 'Cause a lot of times when people ask me, I'm always like, why me, you know, not why me in a sense of like, you know, am I worthy or can I do it, but like why do you want me to direct it? Why do you want my touch, you know?
Right. And so I'm curious now to understand, because you said your goal is to get a development deal, and actually that's kind of like what the this panel like focus is on, like that idea of like utilizing web series as the way to get a development deal in Hollywood. And I'm curious, like whenever you ventured into producing JuJu,
Mm-hmm.
was that did you have that in your mind?
No. The thing with Juju, it's, oh God, Juju became this thing that I did not intend it to be. I didn't intend it to be what it is now. I didn't intend to have, you know, the Sci-Fi Channel writing about us, Nerdist write about us, Afropunk. I didn't expect press. I just did a Variety magazine article for it like 2 weeks ago. Like I didn't expect none of that, you know, and especially Variety magazine. Like I was like, excuse me. I didn't expect anything of it. Juju was really me trying to prove something to myself. And me proving something to myself, meaning like me finishing a project, me, you know, writing something fantasy. Even though I love fantasy so much, I was so afraid to write it because I felt like I don't know. I guess I felt like my imagination wasn't that broad, but I'm such a big daydreamer, even to this day. At my big 31-year-old age, like I can sit in my bed, close my eyes, and just daydream. You know, um, that's, you know, a gift and a curse. But I've always been a daydreamer. Don't know if I would ever grow out of it. It's not a good thing because sometimes, you know, it takes you off your track or whatever. But it was literally me. First, I had just moved to New York, and I was telling myself that I didn't uproot my child. I didn't uproot myself to just come to this, you know, cold, depressing ass state. You know, I didn't leave my beautiful paradise of a hometown for nothing. You know, I told myself, I'm like, you need to leave New York with something. It doesn't matter what it is. You need to finish a project. You need to leave here with something. Don't let this move be in vain, you know, especially for my kid, because, you know, I didn't want my kid like, okay, well, why are we here? Like, why did mom move me here? Like, she ain't doing shit. You know, I'm away from my grandma. I'm in the snow. Oh, he could not stand New York because it was so dirty. Like he was, and he's such a he's one of those kids who's like about climate control and pollution and like all that stuff. So he was just like, I cannot believe these people are fucking up my planet like this. So yeah, so that's what JuJu was for me. I didn't intend any of this, and I wanted to get friends. I didn't have anyone in New York. It was just me, my son, and my boyfriend at the time. I'm no longer with him. Um, but I wanted friends. I wanted community. I wanted to like kind of branch out, learn how I was very shy. I wasn't a big networker. I grew up a selective mute, so like I was still kind of like, you know, not socially awkward, but I just, you when you grow up a selective mute, you kind of just get so used to just not talking. But I really wanted to, I don't know, something in me was just like, okay, girl, just, you're in a different state, just do something, you know, make something, do something, finish something, you know, you go out and meet friends, you actively go out and make these connections. And then once I guess I had my intentions right and the universe listened, and everything just kind of just fell in place, because the three witches, you know, they're like my best friends. You know, like And like the girls who created the project with me, like we speak every day. I was just like, I take 1-day trips for their birthday parties. Like, you know, like they came down here to help me shoot my short film. I helped them with their scripts, you know, like stuff like that. Like we became like super, 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 super close. Like the whole JuJu crew. We call ourselves the JuJu gang. So yeah, so that's that. That's what was with JuJu.
So
I didn't
not even so now seeing where the success that the series has had, and I would assume some new job opportunities because of it. Um, if somebody younger than you is coming in and is like, hey, I'm really trying to break into Hollywood. I got this web series I want to develop to like showcase my work. Do you think, would you advise them like, no, don't do that, or do you think that that is a viable option for possibly like breaking into Hollywood?
I won't ever tell anyone to not do something. But what I will say is that that bitch is hard. So be ready for some hard work. If you're not used to hard work, then you better get used to it because that bitch is hard. I tell people that all the time. I'm someone who don't like to sugarcoat shit. Um, Even like with motherhood, I'd be like, it's, you know, moms be like, oh, my kid is the love of my life, pregnancy was so beautiful for me, da da da, and I'm just like, pregnancy was not all that. First of all, there is nothing beautiful about it because it's a parasite taking over your body. However, it's worth it because you love your kid, blah blah blah. However, though, you love your child, that bitch is hard, whether it's financial, emotional, just parenting, because trying to keep a child alive. You know, it's a never ending thing. It's like it becomes who you are, and it's hard. And I always tell people that, like, you have to be ready for hard work because a lot of people don't like hard work. They want things to come easy. So it's like you don't want to you have to really, even me and myself, I had to sit down and like, okay, girl, are you really about this? Like, are you really gonna commit to doing this? Because I used to be someone who'd be like, oh, I can't be, have a very lazy demeanor. Um, very, very lazy demeanor. But they say that's the quality of a Taurus. And a lazy in a sense that it's not that I don't mind it being hard, is that I always try to figure out the most easiest way to do the hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I cut this in half? Like, how can I do this quicker? That's my laziness. I always find a way to just do it quicker, so it's not taking up all my time, like all days type shit. I'll try to figure out a way, okay, how can I cut this shit in half? But yeah, I always just tell people, if you're not willing to like really sit down and do the hard work, and the hard work is the patience. The hard work is like actually sitting down, writing the script and nurturing the script and making sure that your story is concrete, instead of, you know, vomiting 8 rough drafts of an episode in like 1 week, and then trying to cast in 2 weeks, and then trying to film in the next 2 weeks. Like, you're setting yourself up for failure. And there's such thing as being overambitious, because I was overambitious with my first project out of film school, and it put me in a nasty depression. And that depression led into New York. So it's like I left one project overambitious. I mean, I finished it, but because, you know, that expectation and then come out how you want it, was all the challenges and all that other stuff. And it was JuJu who took me out of that depression that I got from being overambitious. And that also helped me with JuJu, also kept on making me like pump my brakes, like, okay, girl, what's the rush? Just calm down. Just what's the rush? Like, make your script so that you can achieve those goals. Like, if you can't say that you want to shoot in the Empire State Building and then expect to shoot in the Empire State Building, and then when it doesn't happen, you all sad. Like, what, you know, as you know what I'm saying? It's like things like that. Like, be reasonable. It's not saying that you can't do a scene in the Empire State Building, but how can we movie magic it?
Right.
B-roll outside and find another building.
Right.
A cheaper building.
And that's something I talked about with Nova. I'd love to get your opinion on, is like, how much whenever you're developing your script, especially like I feel like producing a sci-fi, producing fantasy, I'm like, damn, producing a film is already hard as hell. But I feel like I made it doubly hard on myself because I wanted to go into this genre that was like magic and special effects and all these things. So I'd love to get your opinion on whenever you're writing, knowing that you're going to produce it yourself, are you adjusting things or writing in a way where it's like, I know I'm not going to have the budget for that? Or do you just write, and then just try to figure out how to make it happen whenever you get into production?
I always have my producer hat on when I'm doing my short films. So like for my production company, we have 4 short films slated for next year. And like when we go into our development meetings for the scripts, I'm always like, okay, this is cute, but how are we gonna get it? I'm always mindful of it when I'm writing because I always have my producer hat on, like, okay, girl, how can we get this? The most ambitious location we had for JuJu was the subway. And we winged it. I was just like, okay, I didn't have a plan for it. My plan was like, okay, we just gonna show up. I was like, we gonna show up. And we showed up and nobody bothered us. And it was 2 days. We had 2 different days. We had a nighttime subway. It was hard. This is where the hard comes in. It was hard because of continuity. So we had to keep on looping. So we'll have to stop at one stop and then take the train all the way back to the end of the stop for continuity, right. So we can see the stuff going the same way. But like no one bothered us, it worked out. So it's like certain things you kind of, because it was public transportation, you can do that. But then also you gotta, we had to do it late at night, like 12 o'clock, like midnight, where it's like empty, so less people and less traffic, because the main thing is you don't want to stop the flow of life. That's where people start getting agitated, when you block sidewalks or you take up a whole subway car and stuff like that. Like you can't stop the public from living their life. So yeah, I always have it in my head. And then when for my scripts, the scripts that are being developed for our 2021 production, whenever I'm going through it, I'm EPing a web series in New York. So I'm the one who's like, how we gonna get that? Y'all know a coffee shop that we can get? Do you have a location for this? And then they be like, oh no. I'm like, okay, well, I'm always like, does this scene have to happen here?
Right.
Like, does it have to happen here? If it doesn't have to happen here, okay, put it on a park bench. Put it in a house. Houses are a little bit more controllable. Put it somewhere where it's attainable. So yeah.
What about the magical realism component to the special effects? Do you ever like what's your kind of strategy with writing that, and then like how do you produce it?
Well, for special effects, I know special effects.
Nice.
Yeah, so I know how to do special effects. Visual effects. Right. Special effects is effects done on set, practical sets. Practical effects like someone flickering the lights or like wind with a cardboard box. Those are special effects. This is for those to know the difference. Right. Visual effects is done post. Mm-hmm. Like the things coming out your fingers and eyes turning red and all that other stuff. Those are visual effects. So for the visual effects, I know how to do visual effects. So I already was like, okay, I can write them in. I just knew that it was going to be a tedious fucking process. But I was like, okay, girl, there's no rush. So just, for me, push comes to shove, I'll just do it because I know how to edit. I know cinematography. I know the camera like the back of my hand. I know visual effects. I know how to do sound design. I know how to do sound editing and mixing because those are all things I learned in film school and that I, taught myself and projected myself with. So my whole thing was like, okay, if push come to shove, I can do all these things.
Right.
It's just going to take a long time for this series to come out.
Right.
However, the universe heard my cry because I was like, oh, I don't want to do all these things. So one of my writers, during like our first meeting, she was like, oh, I do visual effects. And I was like, oh my God. and she does it quicker than me. She loves it. And that's the thing. You have to love it. You have to love it. You have to love post to do post, because I can't stand editing.
Right. Right.
I can do it. I edited the episodes. That was me. I edited the episodes under my dad's name.
Right.
So, but I sat down and edited those episodes. Did I like it? Not really, but I had to do it.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, that's the beast for me. So I shot all my episodes in the first 2 weekends in January. And I'm still technically, I mean, like, once I haven't released the series online yet, but whenever I do, it'll be done. You know what I mean? But I'm still technically editing it right now. Like, Monday, I just went to a recording studio and did ADR session. So now I gotta like work into getting ADR into it, and it's just like, yeah, I don't love the edit, but in order to get this done on a budget and knowing that I have those skills, that's definitely what you gotta do.
Yeah.
So I'm going through this right now, this distribution process, and selfishly, I'm trying to learn from you, like trying to walk in the path that you already set here. So like, what is your mind like? Maybe knowing what you know now, whenever you're done with your next web series, and you're closer to getting that development deal, like what's your distribution strategy look like?
For JuJu, it was really just for the people. I didn't care. Like, I wasn't trying to, like, when I finished it, I already knew I was gonna put it on YouTube. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna hold it and people gonna have to pay it. Like, I wasn't on that. I was just like, people are asking for Black witches. Let me give my people what they want. Let me just share my art with people. And then the thing is, I come from projects. I come from the hood. I come from no money. I was a teen mom. I was a single mom. I've been homeless. I've had to strip. I've had to do bartending. Did a lot to survive out here on these streets. So I know that $10 for Netflix or that $14 a month for Amazon, I know that's a lot of fucking money, for people who don't got it. So I'm like, and at that time I didn't have any job, so I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to try, and I'm just going to put it out for everyone to see. And then as the Fantasy Network reached out, Quelly reached, like, so many different people reached out, but I was also still strategic on like who I was picking to distribute JuJu. But yeah, so like at my first instinct, like I always said, like, I'm just gonna put it out on YouTube and just give it to the world. Because for me, yes, I want to make money. And yes, the main reason I want to make money is because I'm a mom and I want to, have stability for my child and college funds because he's 12 and all that other shit, that comes along with children in their teenage years. But for me, it's also just about just writing stories and just, sharing a piece of me that can maybe help someone else. Because like I said, I've been through everything that a girl child shouldn't have gone through in her childhood. Everything that all the terrors of the world for a woman has happened to me. Like I said, teen mom, deadbeat baby daddy, like, all that bullshit, just tackling this goddamn life on my own. So I know how it is to not have that subscription. If I had my Netflix cut off because I ain't had that little $8 because I had to split that $8 between gas and my kid, So it's like, I get it. So my thing was just like, just giving it to the people and just releasing it into the world. And, however it comes back to me, it came back to me.
Gotcha. And then social media handles, ways to learn more, watch, all that stuff.
Social media for JuJu, it's at JuJu Web Series on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then my personal is at _Moon Ferguson on Instagram and Twitter.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you, Moon. It was really good to speak with you again. Tune in. I'll send out a link whenever it's live. Once I edit this up, it'll be sometime on the 24th. And then they'll save it on their website too. So I appreciate you speaking with me, and yeah, I'm sure we'll keep connecting here soon. I don't know, hopefully sometime in person, but yeah, thank you again. This is really good to connect.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes.